They never hit me, never screamed, never threw me out of the house. But somehow I still grew up knowing I wasn't wanted. My name's Madison Rowe. I'm a lieutenant colonel in military intelligence, but at home I was always the other child, the one they never talked about, the one they never saw. If you've ever felt like you could do everything right and still be invisible, you'll understand why I stopped trying. This isn't just one of those revenge stories. This one is personal. I was 11 when I first realised silence could feel like violence. It was right after the regional science fair. I'd spent 3 months working on a project about tactical communications. Yes, I was that kid. My board was neat, my presentation flawless. I won first place in our county. The judges shook my hand. They said, "You're going to do big things, Madison." That night, I carried the trophy home in my lap, clutching it like a life preserver. The air in the car smelled like Dad's old aftershave, and Mum hummed along with the radio. No one asked how it went. At dinner, I waited for them to notice the trophy I'd placed at the centre of the table. I didn't say anything. I wanted them to ask. They never did. Dad just grunted about work. Mum was too busy texting Aunt Shirley about Jacob's rising star moment in the local debate league. Finally, I said, "I won first place." Dad didn't look up. "Good job, now pass the green beans." Mum smiled like it was polite, then turned back to her phone. The trophy sat between the salt and pepper shakers all night. By morning, it was gone. I found it later on the shelf behind the garage door, next to an old vacuum and a box of Christmas lights. That was the beginning of disappearing. Over the years, it became clear. Jacob was the golden child, the voice, the future. He was loud, charming, obsessed with the spotlight. I was quieter. I liked numbers, plans, long walks at night with my headphones on. But in our house, quiet didn't count. At 14, I got accepted into a summer STEM program at the Naval Academy. Jacob forgot to feed the dog for 2 days and still got praised for learning responsibility. At 17, I got early admission to a military college with a near perfect score on my entrance exams. Mum cried when Jacob got into a liberal arts school in Colorado. When I told her about my acceptance, she said, "Oh, honey, do you really think the military's a good fit for someone like you?" What she meant was, "You're not tough enough." What she didn't say was, "We don't see you that way." Dad was worse in some ways. He was a former Navy man himself, disciplined, blunt, and sharp with judgment. But never curious. Never once asked me why I loved strategy. Never wanted to know what drove me. Once I caught him on the phone with Uncle Glenn saying, "Jacob's Wayne, the leader in the family. Maddie's more bookish, probably won't last long in uniform." I was in my second year of ROTC, running 5 miles every morning, leading my squad through field simulations, carrying more weight on my back than his outdated ideas could fathom. But none of it mattered, not in that house. The emotional coldness was so well practiced, it almost seemed elegant, like a well-written lie. No screaming, no beatings, just indifference. Just a slow, relentless erosion of belief in myself. That's what most people don't get. You don't have to be screamed at to feel worthless. You just have to be ignored long enough to forget you ever mattered. When Jacob posted about his TEDx talk, Mum reposted it with 10 heart emojis. When I quietly graduated top 3% of my class, I got a single text. "Congrats, hope you're staying hydrated, Mum." At some point, I stopped telling them anything. It was easier that way. Easier not to hope. Easier not to check my phone for messages that never came. Still, part of me hoped. If I just accomplished enough, maybe one day they'd see me. But the truth is, you can't make people love you by being impressive. Especially not when they've already decided who you are and who you'll never be. Now that I look back, I think the worst part wasn't their silence. It was the stories they did tell to friends, to cousins, to the neighbourhood, stories about how Jacob was thriving and Madison, well, she's struggling a bit, still trying to find herself. I'd already found myself. They just never bothered to look. This is where the story starts, but not where it ends. They erased me quietly over years, but one day, very soon, I was going to be called on deck, not by them, but by the very institution they said I'd never belong in. And when it happened, they'd have no choice but to stand and watch. The worst part about being erased isn't when people stop asking about you, it's when they start talking for you. It started small. A few side comments, a weird shift in tone during phone calls, cousins hesitating before asking what I'd been up to. I figured I was just overthinking it. That is, until I found the screenshots. Jacob had posted a photo of our family at Thanksgiving, minus me. I hadn't been invited that year. The caption: "So proud to be surrounded by strong minds and even stronger hearts. One of us might be struggling, but the rest of us are still holding it down." One of us, still holding it down. That one was me. No name, no context. Just a quiet little dagger buried under a smiling group photo and filtered pumpkin pie. Then came the group chat. My extended family has this group thread called Row Roots. Sounds sweet, right? It's mostly Mum sending Bible verses and Aunt Camilla posting minion memes. But that spring, I noticed I'd stopped getting tagged in anything. Out of curiosity, I borrowed Captain Reyes's phone and searched the group on Facebook. Turns out they'd started a new one without me. In it, Mum had posted a message. "Please keep Madison in your prayers. She's going through a lot emotionally and had to step back from the military. We're just hoping she finds peace." Step back? I hadn't stepped back. I was running classified operations at the time, working 16-hour days, tracking threat patterns across regions she couldn't even pronounce. But she painted me like I was broken, Jacob added to the fiction. He commented under Mum's post, "It's hard seeing her struggle, but sometimes leadership just isn't for everyone." That one hit different. Because I was in leadership, I'd earned it quietly without needing applause. I didn't post about it. I didn't boast. I figured the people who mattered would ask. But they didn't ask. They assumed. They declared. They spread. Even old friends from high school started acting strange. One of them DM'd me saying, "Hey, I heard you left the service. Hope you're doing okay mentally." Mentally, that's when it clicked. They weren't just erasing me, they were rewriting me. I don't know what's worse, being forgotten or being reinvented into someone you don't even recognize. And maybe it sounds small to some of you, just words, just assumptions, but when it comes from your own blood, it feels like betrayal wrapped in a hug, like grief with a smiley face sticker. If you've ever been talked about in the past tense while you're still very much alive, if your own family ever decided your story for you, you'll get this, you'll get that tight, sinking feeling in your chest. That moment where you scroll through a chat and realize everyone thinks you're weak. Not because you failed, but because someone else said you did. And what hurts most, they all believed it. No one questioned it. No one picked up the phone and said, "Hey, Maddie, what's actually going on?" Sometimes I wonder if anyone watching this has ever been there. Like, has your family ever turned you into a cautionary tale before you even got a chance to explain? If you have, I really hope you drop something below, because this is where it started eating me alive. I stopped calling home. I stopped replying to messages. I'd see Mum calling pop up on my phone, and I'd feel my throat close. Not because I didn't miss her, but because I didn't know who she thought I was anymore. One time I picked up, I thought maybe it'd be different. But all she said was, "You should talk to Jacob more. He's worried about you." Worried about me? He's the one who said I couldn't handle leadership. I started collecting screenshots, quietly. Not because I wanted revenge, but because something inside me whispered, "You're going to need the receipts." One day, this lie they've built, it's going to crack. Captain Reyes noticed I was off. I finally told him everything. He didn't say much, just stared at the screen, then muttered, "They don't even deserve to be in your chapter titles, let alone your plot." That line stuck with me. The last straw, the day my uncle forwarded me a message Jacob had sent to a family friend, someone who worked in government relations. It said, "If you're ever hiring, steer clear of Madison Rowe. She's not stable enough for leadership positions." He wasn't just rewriting my story anymore. He was trying to end it. That's when I called Colonel Wexler, my direct superior at Defence Intelligence. I told him everything, the rumours, the smear, the way it was starting to leak into work circles. He was quiet. Then he said, "I want you to present at the October Intel Summit. Go show them who's unstable." So that's what I did. I said yes, and I started preparing, but not for them, not for the people who'd never believe me. I was doing this for me, to reclaim the voice they tried to strip out of every sentence I was never allowed to speak. Because the truth, you don't erase a soldier by gossip. You don't silence a commander with a family thread. And when I took that stage, they were going to realize the daughter they wrote off was the one the nation just stood up for. Revenge wasn't the goal. At least, not at first. I didn't want them to hurt the way they hurt me. I just wanted, I needed for someone to see the truth. Even if it wasn't my parents, even if it was just one room full of people who had no clue who I was, but would know without a doubt what I could do. It started with a phone call. Colonel Wexler's voice came through the line, calm but firm. "You've been nominated to present at the October Intelligence Summit at Fort Bentley. Full department presence, major media, even Pentagon eyes. Think you're ready?" Was I ready? No. I was still reeling from what Jacob had done, from my mum's silence, from the group chat full of heart emojis and fake concern. I was still waking up some nights wondering if maybe they were right, but I'd learned to operate under fire. So I said, "Yes, sir, I'm in." That night, I opened a locked drawer in my apartment I hadn't touched in months. Inside, my full formal uniform, perfectly pressed. A silver bar pin marking my lieutenant colonel rank. A folder labelled Redacted 6th Regional Strategy Brief. And below it all, a photo, me and Captain Reyes, grinning in desert camo, mud on our boots, sweat in our eyes, and a folder full of lives we'd helped save. I held that photo in my hands for a long time. Then I opened my laptop and started building the slide deck that would change everything. The summit wasn't just a talk, it was the talk. Broadcast live, military brass in the audience, civilian analysts, Congress reps, national press. And apparently my dad had been invited as an honoured veteran, which meant my mother would be there, and God help me, So would Jacob. I didn't tell anyone, not my family, not my co-workers. Only 3 people knew I was presenting: Captain Reyes, Colonel Wexler. Mrs. Mildred, my 74-year-old neighbour who always brought cookies when I had a bad day. I told her everything one night over lemon tea and oatmeal raisin bars. She didn't say much, just looked at me with those soft, tired eyes and whispered, "Baby, you don't owe them understanding. You owe yourself freedom." From that night on, I trained like I was preparing for deployment. Reyes and I practiced every line, every stat, every transition. We tore apart my phrasing, rebuilt it. He threw curveballs at me mid-presentation just to see if I'd freeze. I didn't. I spent weekends refining flow charts, late nights tweaking the UI breakdown. I cut sleep, skipped weekends out. My kitchen became a war room, sticky notes on the fridge, printed slides on the counter, coffee rings on every table. I wasn't doing this to impress them. I was doing it so they'd have nothing left to twist. One night, Reyes paused during rehearsal and asked, "Why don't you want them to know beforehand?" I shrugged. "Because if I fail, they'll say it confirms everything." "And if you succeed," I smiled, small, tired. "Then they won't even know what hit them." Somewhere along the way, something shifted. I wasn't scared anymore. I was sharp, focused, cold even. They'd stripped me of identity for years, whispered lies into spaces I wasn't invited into. Now I had control, I had the mic, and for once they'd be in the audience. The only moment I nearly broke was a week before the summit. I got a message from Mum, one sentence. "Heard you're coming to Dad's ceremony, please behave." That was it. No question, no warmth, just a request to not embarrass them. I stared at it for a long time, didn't reply. Instead, I printed the message out and slid it into my folder, right behind the slide titled U.S. Domestic Threat Detection, Commander Rowe's Framework. I wasn't going to behave, I was going to arrive. The night before I flew to Fort Bentley, Mrs. Mildred knocked on my door holding a box. Inside, a small wooden frame with a photo I didn't know she had. Me in uniform, half smiling, holding a file in front of an American flag. She'd added a caption at the bottom. "Seen, respected, worthy." I choked up. "Thank you," I whispered. "No, baby," she said, squeezing my hand. "Thank you for surviving what they tried to erase." I wish I could say I didn't care anymore, that their approval meant nothing. But the truth is, I still felt that little girl inside me, holding a trophy at the dinner table, waiting for someone to look up. Only now, I was done waiting. I had a uniform, a mic, and a stage. And next time they spoke about me in past tense, it'd be because I just shut the room down. Let me know if you've ever prepared in silence like that, carrying a fire while smiling through dinner. I won't tell anyone. I just want to know who else is out there walking into a room full of skeptics, ready to burn. Fort Bentley was electric that morning. The summit had pulled in press, senators, 4-star generals, and enough security to make the air feel thick. Outside the gates, families took photos next to fighter jets. Inside, in the Grand Rotunda, everything gleamed. Floors, badges, polished boots. Even the coffee smelled high-ranking. I arrived early, my dress uniform under a plain charcoal coat. Not to be dramatic, I just wasn't ready to show the bars yet, not until it mattered. My name wasn't on the general public program. Just U.S. Threat Detection Briefing, Section 3. They didn't even know who was stepping up, and that was the point. Let them underestimate me one last time. Across the room, I spotted them, my parents. Dad in his navy blue veteran's jacket, medals polished so hard they nearly reflected his frown. Mum in a pearl pink suit dress, hair done up like it was prom night, her posture perfect, her eyes scanning for familiar faces, but never landing on mine. Next to them, Jacob, sunglasses pushed up on his head like he wanted people to think he'd just walked off a TED stage. He leaned on the refreshment table, sipping something with a smug tilt, talking too loudly. I stayed in the shadows of the side hallway, not hiding, just choosing the moment. The program rolled on, speeches, clapping, flag salutes. Someone droned on about logistics improvements in cybersecurity, polite applause, soft yawns. Then came the announcement. Now, our next presenter, Lieutenant Colonel Madison Rowe, U.S. Department of Defense Intelligence. That was it. No warning, no title card, no photo, just my name. Spoken clearly, loudly, and then, Lieutenant Colonel on deck. Boom. Every soldier in that room stood to attention. Boots clicked, backs straightened, salutes snapped up with precision. Jacob turned first. His face dropped like someone had unplugged his spine. Mum's head whipped toward the stage, her lips parting slightly, as if trying to form a sentence, but forgetting how. Dad's jaw clenched. I saw his fingers twitch, maybe instinct, maybe shame. I stepped forward, unbuttoned my coat. My bars gleamed under the spotlight. No one said a word. They couldn't. My heels echoed across the marble as I took the stage. My heart pounded, but my voice solid. Good morning. I'm Lieutenant Colonel Madison Rowe. Today I'll be briefing a multi-regional threat analysis framework currently deployed in 6 of 13 domestic zones. I wrote it. I lead it. Let's begin. No fluff, no thanks to family, no sugarcoat, just truth. Slide after slide, I walked them through real data, real intel, real fieldwork. I translated code into tactics, decisions into lives saved. Every word precise. Every second earned. People nodded, jotted notes. A general whispered something to a senator. I saw it happen. The shift from doubt to respect, from who is she to she's the one they were talking about. By the time I finished, the room didn't clap. They erupted. Not the polite type either. Real applause, real recognition. Military officers stood, reporters leaned forward. The general from Homeland Security shook my hand like I'd just handed him the Holy Grail. And then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw Jacob step forward, like he was about to say something. Maybe explain, maybe spin. But someone else moved faster, a reporter. Excuse me, weren't you the one who said your sister had stepped away from the military? That she was struggling? The mic picked it up. The crowd turned. Jacob froze, smiled, weak, twitchy. Oh, I think there was just a misunderstanding. We didn't know it. Mum tried to laugh. Is a soft, desperate sound. But the reporter wasn't done. And yet she's here presenting active strategic models as a lieutenant colonel, just wondering where that narrative came from. The silence that followed was perfect, heavy, real. Exactly what they'd made me sit in for years. After the summit, I walked out into the bright October sun. Mrs. Mildred had snuck in with a guest pass. She stood off to the side, waving her tiny Support Our Troops flag like a proud grandma at a high school graduation. Captain Reyes met me near the steps. You nuked 'em, he said, grinning. Just facts, I said. Facts with fire, he replied. We laughed. And behind us, the people who used to say I was fragile stood watching as strangers clapped for me, shook my hand, asked me for comment. They looked so small. I didn't go up to them. I didn't need to, because for the first time in my entire life, They had to watch me succeed without their blessing. They had to realize they couldn't undo it, unsay it, or bury it in silence. It was out, live, archived, and reshared. Let me ask you something. Have you ever had to prove your worth in front of people who already decided you had none? Have you ever stayed quiet while they built a lie around you, just waiting for the right day to speak? Because this was my day, and I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I just stepped forward, and they stood up. They say the internet never forgets. Turns out, it also never forgives. Within 2 hours of my summit speech, clips of me in uniform were all over X, TikTok, and YouTube Shorts. The phrase Lieutenant Colonel Rowe, just cooked in silence, trended nationwide. A military blog reposted my presentation with the headline, "The family thought she failed. Then she briefed the Pentagon live." Someone had screen recorded the moment Jacob froze during the reporter's question and captioned it, "When your lies meet a live stream." It had 1.2 million views in under 10 hours. But it wasn't just strangers watching. A cousin of mine, someone who hadn't messaged me in 5 years, DM'd me with 3 words. "I'm so sorry," and attached a screenshot of Jacob's old Facebook post, the one where he joked that I wasn't built for leadership. It was already being reposted, torn apart in, quote, tweets. This didn't age well. Imagine lying on your sister while she's out here protecting you. He's not even the main character in his own family anymore. The real blow came 2 days later. Jacob's consulting firm, a boutique group that handled PR and brand management for political clients, lost a $1.2 million government contract. One of the board members had seen the summit video, made the connection, and asked questions. The client, a retired Marine turned senator, he issued a public statement. "We don't work with companies whose people intentionally smear veterans, especially their own family." The comment section was brutal. Someone dug up more posts. Others remembered Mum's group chat messages and posted screenshots. The internet put it all together like puzzle pieces no one asked for, but everyone wanted to solve. By the end of the week, Jacob had locked all his socials. And Mum? She called me. I didn't pick up at first. She left a voicemail. Her voice sounded small, like someone walking across broken glass barefoot. "Maddie, I didn't know. I mean, we just thought you were keeping things from us. We never meant to. I don't know. We didn't think it would spread like this." That line stuck in my head. We didn't think it would spread like this. As if the real issue was the fallout, not the betrayal. The next day, she texted, "Can we have dinner? Just talk? Just us, please?" I stared at the message for a long time. I even typed a reply once. Deleted it, then typed again. Finally, I answered, "I'm not ready to sit across a table from people who told the world I broke before they ever asked if I was okay." No response after that. Reyes and I went out for burgers that night. One of those hole-in-the-wall places with old vinyl booths and ketchup stains on the table. He raised a soda to me and said, "To Lieutenant Colonel Rowe, who just ended a family PR empire with a PowerPoint." I laughed harder than I expected to. The kind of laugh that shakes loose a lot more than sound. Back home, Mrs. Mildred was waiting with a cake. chocolate with a handwritten note on top in icing. They finally saw what I knew. I hugged her so tight her glasses nearly slipped off. But even with all the headlines, even with the praise, the ache didn't disappear, because when you grow up feeling invisible, the pain doesn't just evaporate when people start seeing you. It lingers like scar tissue, even when you win. A week later, a journalist from The Atlantic emailed me asking for a profile interview. I said no, not because I was afraid, but because I didn't need more eyes on me. I just needed me to look in the mirror and finally say, "You made it, without them." Jacob hasn't called, which is good. I have nothing left to say to him. But one of his old clients, someone who used to believe every word he said, DM'd me. All she wrote was, "My brother did the same to me. Thank you for standing your ground." That one? That message hit the deepest. Because maybe this wasn't just about me anymore. Maybe this was for every daughter who was written off, every sibling who was erased, every quiet one they thought would stay silent forever. They thought I broke. They didn't realize I was building, quietly, carefully, with the kind of resolve you only get when you grow up learning how to survive your own family. If this chapter hits something in you, I don't need you to comment for me, but maybe say something for you, because sometimes the real power isn't in getting the last word. It's in being the one still standing when they finally stop talking. Some things don't go back. The frame doesn't fix itself. The glass doesn't unshatter. After the summit and the fallout, I kept waiting for the pain to lift. Like maybe if enough people clapped, enough strangers said, "You deserve better," I'd finally stop feeling like I needed to prove anything. But healing doesn't come in viral views. It comes in moments, small ones. 2 weeks after the summit, I got offered a promotion. Official command of a specialised joint intel unit operating between domestic and cyber branches. It was a big deal. Clearance level bump, new team, a direct line to brief top defence staff every month. I said yes, then asked for one weekend off before it started. Reyes and I booked a cheap cabin on the coast. No Wi-Fi, no email, just sand, wind, and the kind of quiet that doesn't feel empty. He brought a beat-up radio. I brought a journal. We drank coffee out of tin mugs and grilled burgers in hoodies. He made a fire. I let myself fall asleep in the middle of a conversation. No dreams, just peace. That's how I knew I was healing, not because everything was fixed, but because I could finally rest. On the last night, he asked me, "Do you think they'll ever really apologise?" I looked out at the ocean and said, "Maybe, but that's not what I'm waiting for." Because the truth is, their words won't change what they didn't do. They didn't believe in me. They didn't ask. They didn't see me. And now that the world does, it's too late to be proud of me. Back in the city, life moved on. I mentored 3 new officers, each one sharp, awkward, and quietly brilliant in their own way. I started a side project with a few female veterans to build better transition programs for women leaving active duty. And every Sunday morning, I had tea with Mrs. Mildred, who now calls me kiddo with more affection than I ever got from my own mother. Mum did try again. She sent flowers to my office, an expensive white arrangement with a card that said, "We're proud of you now." I didn't respond, not because I was angry, but because now, after I built the house, painted the walls, and carried the roof on my own back. Now you're proud? No. Keep your bouquet. Dad hasn't said a word. Jacob posted something vague a month later, some self-pitying caption about learning to grow after mistakes. I didn't read the comments. I didn't care to. I wasn't the ghost anymore. I wasn't the afterthought. I wasn't the struggling daughter. I was Lieutenant Colonel Madison Rowe. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't chasing anyone's permission to exist. On my birthday, Reyes showed up at my door with 2 small boxes. One had a compass inside, engraved with the coordinates of Fort Bentley. The other, a mug, white ceramic, black lettering, built in silence, standing loud. I laughed so hard I nearly dropped it. It's still on my desk. Every morning, I drink from it. And I remind myself, you don't have to scream to be heard. You just have to keep showing up. Some scars stay, but they stop burning after a while. And some stories, they don't end with forgiveness, they end with freedom. To whoever's reading this, if your story feels like mine, if you were the quiet one, the overlooked one, the family's second draft, I hope this gave you something, a little courage, a little proof, a reminder that being erased doesn't mean you disappear. You're still here. You're still standing. And maybe this is the part where your chapter begins. If you've ever walked away from people who never saw your worth, tell me about it. Or don't. Just know I'm listening. Always. Madison.